Hello and welcome to News Now on TV360. I am Thelma Okuru. Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is doing its very best to manage the nation's resources in a prudent manner. He was speaking on Thursday while receiving the United Nations Population Fund Executive Director and Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Professor Babatunde Oshotimehin, at the State House in Abuja. He said the government was committed to transparency and accountability, which is serving the government in good stead despite severe shortages of resources. The president also urged the UNFPA to bear with Nigeria in whichever area the country could not live up to its responsibilities for now. A new militant group known as the Niger Delta Greenland Justice Mandate says they have blown up a pipeline belonging to the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, NPDC, in Delta State, southern Nigeria. In a statement, the group said it blew the pipeline on Wednesday, August 10, 2016. The attack comes a day after it threatened to strike based on the alleged decision of the federal government to concentrate on the Ijaw militants in its dialogue plans at the expense of other groups in the region. Recurring attacks on oil and gas facilities by militants in the Niger Delta region has cut the country's crude production to around 700,000 barrels per day. The attacks have also slashed output at a time when Nigeria is grappling with low global crude oil prices, which have hammered government revenues. Hundreds of protesters blocked the entrance to a Chevron oil depot in Niger's restive Niger Delta region on Thursday, demanding jobs and new housing. Now, this will be the third day in a row such protests have taken place in the region. The protesters, mostly unemployed youths, started the demonstration on Tuesday, claiming their settlement had been destroyed due to a Chevron oil depot or tank farm. They want the company to relocate more of its Nigerian offices to the southern Delta states to secure work for the people living in the oil-producing swampland. Nigeria's Vice President Yemi Osinbajo on Thursday said the country intends to spend 100 billion naira on capital projects in the coming days. Speaking at a business forum, Osinbajo said the introduction of a more flexible foreign currency regime in June this year had eased pressure on the foreign reserves without giving any details. His statement comes as the country tries to inject life into its economy facing recession. Africa's largest economy is in the middle of its worst crisis in decades as a slump in crude oil revenues hammers public finances and the naira. Niger's economic problems have no quick solution. Well, that's what some key ministers in President Muhammadu Buhari's cabinet have been telling Nigerians at the federal government's organized town hall meeting. In attendance at the meeting in Abuja were 9 ministers, which is the Finance Minister, Kemi Adeosun, the Minister of Environment, Amina Mohammed, as well as the Minister of Solid Minerals, Kayode Fayemi, then the Minister of Works, Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, and the Minister of Agriculture, Audu Ogbe, as well as the Minister of Budget and National Planning, Udoma, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Geoffrey Onyema. Among the issues discussed at the gathering was the 2016 budget, diversifying the Nigerian economy, and of course, recession. These aren't the best of times for Nigeria. Despite being the largest economy in Africa and a top oil producer, Nigeria is barely managing to keep its economy running. And to make matters worse, recession is looming. A drastic drop in crude oil prices globally and a significant reduction in production levels as a result of militancy in the Niger Delta region has seen the country's revenue drop by almost a half. That has also taken a severe toll on Nigeria's currency, which has continued to fall against major currencies in the world. It's indeed a tough time for Nigerians. The government hopes to spend its way out of the difficulty. For this year alone, it plans to spend 6 trillion naira, an unprecedented budget in the history of the country.
$1 billion annually.
And it's been using town hall meetings like this one to put forward its case and let Nigerians know what it is doing to address the economic challenge.
When the budget was signed into law in May,
it set for us a 12-month period to implement the budget. So far, we have released for capital alone 331.58 billion released for capital projects. The bulk of it was for power, works, and housing, which got over 100 billion. Defense and security, 50 billion. Transportation, 23 billion. Agriculture, 21 billion. Special intervention programs, 15 billion. Niger Delta, 8.2 billion.
The diversification agenda is not a rhetoric. The diversification agenda is an economic objective that we will achieve with what we're doing with the budget, with our implementation, and with how we are managing our finances. So yes, we are borrowing. We need to borrow because we cannot wait for the oil price to recover. We have to borrow to invest in these large infrastructure projects that are needed to unlock the competitiveness in our economy and create jobs for our people.
The Minister of Works, Power and Housing, Babatunde Fashola, gave clarification on how much his ministry had received from the budget.
My ministries, 3 ministries, have received 102 billion, to be specific. Now, it has been described as a lion's share of 300 billion, but it is a lion's share against our realities. Our realities are that we inherited 206 roads under construction, and the liabilities for those roads were in the sum of 2.1 trillion naira, out of which government had paid about 600 or 700 billion naira.
With a negative GDP growth in the first quarter of this year and a very likely negative GDP in the second quarter, everyone, including the government, believes the country might be heading for a recession. But the government says even when the recession finally hits, it would be for the short term.
The one thing Nigerians have in abundance, it's probably our greatest intangible asset, is the spirit of the Nigerian people, the entrepreneurship of the Nigerian people, and their hard work. If we can combine those with an enabling environment created by government, I believe this economy can turn around. I know people are concerned about recession. Recession is a word. We can come out of a recession. We can make sure it is as short as possible by sticking to the prescription, which is we must be disciplined in our expenditure, we must invest in our capital, and we must diversify our economy.
Nigeria may find a way out of its economic challenges, but to achieve that, the country's Minister of Agriculture says the strong demand for foreign currency and food importation bill must be cut down.
So we became importers of rice, $5 million a day, wheat, $6 million a day, tomato paste, $400 million a year. It goes on and on and on. $20 billion a year on food. Why can't we produce? A number of things. First, elite indifference to agriculture. We abandoned it to the poor peasants in the villages, whose average age today is about 65. The youths have left the villages. They moved into the cities. There are no jobs in the cities, so urban poverty has become more dangerous than rural poverty. Interest rates have remained impossible for farmers to access. The quality of seed is hopelessly poor. And one of the worst is our lack of knowledge of fertilizer application.
The government no doubt faces a daunting task turning the economy around. It is pinning its hopes on agriculture to drive its diversification project. It is also aiming to get local manufacturers to begin to produce in order to reduce imports. But the road ahead still remains rough. And the government is making it clear to Nigerians that there is no quick fix to the reality confronting them at this time. Thelma Okoro, TV360, Lagos. President Muhammad Buhari has met with Nobel laureate Wole Soyinka behind closed doors at the presidential villa in Abuja. Speaking after the meeting, Soyinka told reporters he came to discuss international and national matters with the president. He, however, noted that he would be holding a press conference next week to brief journalists on the meeting. During a visit to Minister of Information and Culture Lai Mohammed back in February this year, Wole Soyinka had advised the government to call an emergency economic conference made up of experts and other economic stakeholders to rescue the nation and plot the way forward. The court-martial in charge of trying erring soldiers of the Operation Lafia Dole has warned that it will not welcome unnecessary adjournment and delays. President of the court-martial, Brigadier General Olusegun Adeniyi, gave the caution during the trial of 4 officers and 16 others charged with various malpractices in the course of the counterinsurgency war. General Adeniyi, who read the riot acts to the prosecuting and defense counsels, noted that he would conclude the trials within the shortest possible time, assuring that the time spent in detention by the accused soldiers would be adequately accounted for once judgment was handed down to them. He then adjourned sitting till September 5, 2016. Now the soldiers are accused of various offences, ranging from criminal sale of arms to abuse of human rights during the ongoing war against Boko Haram in the northeast region. Niger Senate President Bukola Saraki has ordered security agencies in the country to investigate the alleged recruitment of Boko Haram terrorists in some internally displaced persons camp in the northeast region. Saraki, in a statement, said it had become necessary for the nation's intelligence agencies to take such rumors seriously with the aim of curtailing the unfortunate development. He said security personnel in Niger should learn from their foreign counterparts where such practices have been curbed. Edo State Governor Adams Oshiomhole and former Governor of Cross River State Donald Duke have taken different stands over the poor performance of the Nigerian economy and the decline of the Naira against other currencies. Oshiomhole slammed the previous People's Democratic Party-led government, saying that the crass corruption which characterized that administration was responsible for the country's current economic crisis. However, Donald Duke took a swipe at the current APC government over the state of the nation.
Ordinarily, politicians ought to be active activists, advocating and articulating improvements in society. Sadly, politicians in our society today are mostly jobbers and budget padders, advocating for themselves and not society. They cleverly and surreptitiously apply the word change. I, of course, won't use that word because as a member of the PDP, or what's left of it, that word change, they do me one kind. However, improvement is constant. Not being satisfied with how society is and seeking to better it, we advocate improvement and not change. Don't forget, in 1966, we had a change, a violent one, from a democracy to military. So change is not always necessarily the way to go. As for the change, where we did so, only time will tell. Improvement, on the other hand, is universal and a constant pursuit.
You know, when we say these things, they don't appear so obvious. What I question, which I don't accept even now as a governor, is that you cannot, on the one hand, have a centralized system of compensation for state executives, from governors to commissioners to councillors to local government chairmen. Their pay is centrally determined, and the economy can afford that. That what the Lagos State governor receives is what Edo State governor is receiving. And that is what my brother used to receive. And if you were smart to pass it into pension, that is what you are still receiving. I mean the Governor Aliu of Niger State. So if we have a national compensation for all governors, how can those governors turn around to question the wisdom of having a national minimum wage? If there is a national wage structure for all governors, for all assemblymen, for all senators, for everyone. It is that selective application of the principle of federalism that I found extremely offensive and unacceptable. And even today, I remain firm that we must maintain a national minimum wage. We must find a way to incrementally adjust it to reflect the cost of living, and that it is the duty of government as employer and private sector employers to look for the resources to pay those they have hired to work, whether in private or public sector.
The Nigerian presidency says the 2016 budget signed into law in May this year by President Muhammad Buhari was not padded. This latest statement is in reaction to allegations by SAC chairman of the House Committee on Appropriation, Abdulmumun Jibrin, that Speaker of the House, Yakubu Dogara, and 13 other lawmakers inflated the 2016 budget. Aide to the President on National Assembly matters, Senator Ita Enang, says, contrary to Jibrin's claim, there is no word as pardon in Nigeria's legislative dictionary. Meanwhile, the Speaker of the House of Reps, Yakubu Dogara, has rejected an invitation by the Police Special Investigating Panel to answer questions over the recent allegations of budget padding brought against him. The panel had, in a letter to Dogara, requested him and others mentioned in the petition to appear before it last Friday. The Speaker, however, did not honor that invitation. Rather, he met with President Muhammad Buhari over the budget crisis. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we'll look at business and sports stories. Please don't go away.
Corruption not in my country.
Hello, Alhaji. Right now I'm in Abuja. No. Hello? Adamu. Right now I'm in Kano. Yes. When I get back, I'll just call you. Look, what is wrong with you? I'm talking on the phone and you are gesticulating and doing. What's wrong with you?
Daddy, where exactly are we as we speak?
Are you alright? This is Lagos.
Well, you just lied to someone that we're in Abuja.
Keep quiet. Who told you can tell an elderly person is lying?
Daddy, you just lied. And by lying, you're raising corrupt children for the future of Nigeria. That is corruption, not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Welcome back. South Africa's economy has overtaken Nigeria's as Africa's largest in dollar terms, reclaiming the top spot it lost 2 years ago. Both economies faced recession after contracting in 2016, which is this year. But while the South African rand has gained more than 16% since the beginning of 2016, Nigeria's naira has plunged by more than a third of its value. At their respective exchange rates, Nigeria's gross domestic product is about $296 billion, while the size of South Africa's economy is $301 billion. Nigeria's GDP was in excess of $500 billion in April 2014. Shareholders in the Nigerian capital market will soon begin to enjoy automated processing of dividends. This comes after the nation's regulatory body, which is the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC), said from June 2017 no registrar will issue dividend warrants to investors in the capital market. Now, at present, only 6,000 shareholders have registered on the new e-dividend platform. This was part of the new measures announced at the end of the quarterly Capital Market Committee meeting held in Lagos. Our correspondent, Abiola Ismail, has the details.
For more than 12 months now, the Securities and Exchange Commission (SEC) has been driving a campaign for the registration of shareholders into the new e-dividend system, believing the move would deepen the market and ensure more participation of retail investors. But the response so far has been poor, with only 6,000 out of millions of shareholders registered on the platform. The man at the helm of the SEC now says shareholders, registrars and stockbrokers now have until June 2017 to comply or risk losing on their investments.
The issue of unclaimed dividend in Nigeria. Luckily enough, the trend is going down now. We also agree with the registrars that anybody that registered for the e-dividend and they actually realize that there are some unclaimed dividend they have not declared, they have no claim, that unclaimed dividend will now be paid directly into the client's account. So it is very advantageous. I'm sure some of us have unclaimed dividend that we have no claim. So by the time you register for the e-dividend and the registrars realize that there are unclaimed dividend of 3-4 years that you actually have no claim, apart from crediting that dividend for you, they will also credit all the accrued dividend that investor has not collected.
The Commission also wants the National Assembly to amend the provision of the Companies and Allied Matters Act, (CAMA), to give room for more tax concessions so that multinationals will be lured to list on the exchange. Apart from conversing incentives that will encourage companies doing business in Nigeria to list their shares on the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the committee said there was need to amend some laws on the capital market and corporate affairs in order to attract investors to the capital market and retain them.
We will continue at the level of NIPS to encourage the banks to do the needful. And like I said, feedback from the investors are very, very important. If we don't continue to make a scapegoat of people that are encumbering our processes of doing things right in this country, we'll continue to perpetrate evil acts.
We were all charged to go back, tell our staff and other members in the industry, in our trade groups, to ask ourselves to go to the platform and register. If we do so, these 6,000 will rise up to more than 500,000 within a very short period of time.
We have achieved 98.4% dematerialization, and that literally means that out of the 189 securities on the NSE, 186 are fully dematerialized. So there are only 3, and those 3, hopefully in the next 1 or 2 weeks, we will be able to reconcile or resolve the issues we have with those 3 registrars, because it's just 3 securities.
Records from the SEC show the total amount of unclaimed dividend is now over 80 billion naira. The Commission is therefore pushing the e-dividends initiative to address the problem once and for all. Abiola Ismail, TV360. Lagos.
The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, says it expects Nigeria's oil importation to improve despite persistent attacks on oil installations in the country's Niger Delta region. Attacks by militants in the Niger Delta have seen the country's crude production drop to 30-year lows in recent weeks. Despite this, OPEC in a report says it expects Nigeria's oil production to pick up anytime soon. The body says export opportunities to Latin America could lend support to European gasoline, while exports to Nigeria rise steadily. Meanwhile, global oil prices fell on Thursday as a build in U.S. crude inventories and record Saudi Arabian production reinforced fears of a persistent supply overhang. U.S. crude futures were trading at $41.59 per barrel, while international Brent crude futures were at $43.95 per barrel, which is down 10 cents. Oil fell sharply after data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration showed crude inventories rose by 1.1 million barrels in the week ended of August 5th. Zambians are voting in presidential and parliamentary elections following campaigning marred by clashes between rival supporters. It is expected to be a tight race between President Edgar Lungu's governing PF party and the opposition UPND led by Hakainde Hichilema. For the first time, a presidential candidate must win more than 50% of the vote to avoid a runoff. Lungu won the last election by less than 28,000 votes. Each of the 9 presidential candidates has a running mate to avoid a presidential by-election if the president dies in office. Of course, this has happened twice in the last 10 years. Niger's former president Goodluck Jonathan is the leader of the African Union Election Monitoring Mission to Zambia. The United Nations is investigating evidence of a toxic gas attack on a rebel-held area of the Syrian city of Aleppo. Rebels said the attack, which reportedly left 4 people dead and many others injured, was carried out by government forces using chlorine gas. The UN Special Envoy for Syria said a chlorine attack, if confirmed, would amount to a war crime. On the sports scene now, Niger Super Eagles moved up 3 places to the 67th position in the latest FIFA World Ranking. The Eagles, who fell to 70th position last month, however, remain 16th in the African ranking. Algeria, Ghana and Ivory Coast remain the top 3 teams in Africa. Meanwhile, the world top 10 remain unchanged, with Argentina, Belgium and Colombia occupying the top 3 slots. Niger's Olympic team, the Dream Team 6, will face Denmark in the Rio 2016 football event after topping their group. The team lost 2-0 to Colombia in their last group stage, but still finished top of their group after securing victory in their first 2 matches. The team finished with 6 points ahead of Colombia, who finished with just 5 points. They will now play Denmark in the quarterfinal on Saturday, and the game is expected to kick off at 8 p.m. Nigerian time. Nigerians are divided over the country's overall performance at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. So far, the country is yet to win any medal at the Games. But despite going with a contingent of about 74 athletes, some Nigerians say they have little hope of Team Nigeria coming home with any medal. However, the football team performing brilliantly and track and field events yet to begin, some Nigerians are optimistic about the country's chances.
Well, I must say it's been quite appalling so far. I personally wasn't having much expectations because seeing how the preparations went, so I wasn't surprised seeing that they were crashing out from all of the competition. So to say that I'm sad or I'm feeling bad or downcast about it, no, that's not the case. As a matter of fact, I would even say they even tried, because I wasn't expecting the performance that the under-23 were pulling out, you know. That was much of a performance. 6 hours before the main match, and then you come and then you do a fight of 5-4. No, that's quite impressive for me. If every other person crashed out, man, thumbs up, you did well. At least you got to go, and then you represented us quite well. For the federal government, of course, they got what they deserve.
Nigeria are performing really good. They are trying, especially on the aspect of football. I think with what I'm seeing on ground, we'll have a lot of things to do. Though we might have crashed out from other sports like the tennis, and some other ones, but on football and athletics, I think Okagbere is performing well. And with what the teams on football are doing, we are going to get there.
Nigeria is only performing extremely good in the area of football, but in the area of basketball and the rest, and I think in tennis, I think the guy that is representing Nigeria is also trying. But in other area, I can see that our performance is somehow really poor. So that is for me.
Well, that's all we have on News Now. We thank you very much for joining us. I am Thelma Okoro.